Today's perp, unfortunately, had been listening to too much Peter, Paul, and Mary. We had to take a second off camera for Mike to recover because he thought that one was funny. And if you get that dated pop culture reference, go schedule your colonoscopy. Welcome to today's badge cam lesson here at Active Self Protection. I'm your host, John Correa.
I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from Milledgeville, Georgia. Change the name of your town.
Palm pepper spray is next generation OC spray. It's hot at 1.4% major capsaicinoids, and its modular design means you can customize it exactly to you. 3 different setups, lots of different color combinations. You can make it exactly as you like. And the flip top safety prevents accidental discharges. It's 10 to 12 foot range and 25 half-second blasts. Make sure that you can keep that long range eye poke at long range. I trust Palm OC and I recommend it for everyone for self-defense. Officers have been called to this church for a possible burglary in progress. And so with the burglar still on scene, officers are gonna go in or deputies and try to clear this building. Go south in a hurry. Let's listen in and hear what happens.
Sheriff's office. That's the one they busted out. Hey, come here.
What?
Look right here.
Saw something?
Yeah. Arrest booking sheet.
Are you kidding me?
Don't. Here, let me get a picture of it. Sternum.
What an idiot. Tina Murphy. Put lies on that.
Did you say last name Murph?
Hey! Fuck! You hit me in my head.
She hit you?
Yeah. Fuck!
Let me get back to the radio.
Fuck!
Call it in. What do you got in your hand, dear? Let me see your hands.
Nothing.
You alright?
I thought she was an intruder.
Where you hit at?
Everywhere.
Call any unit close to the church on all monofilament request units.
Alright, dear. Lay your legs straight out, dear. Let me see where you hit at. Dear, can you lay your legs straight out? I can't see where you hit. Let me see, dear. You hit in the stomach? Anywhere? Can you feel it? Can you tell me where you hit at, dear? Can you tell me where you hit at?
Yeah, I called 1018.
Did you call for an ambulance as well?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't figure out where she's hit at. Tuft! Where's the light at? Dear, let me see your leg here. Can you straighten your legs out? Hey, dear, talk to me. Talk to me. Roll over on the other side so I can see. So I can put some pressure on it.
Oh, yes, we
Yeah.
have an officer involved, Jen, Duties for number 21. Here, there'll be one up there.
All right.
That's in the sheriff's office.
can't find the,
She conscious?
yeah. She's still conscious, thank you, dear. She just won't tell me where she's hit at.
Well, we got one on the back leg. I just need a second.
Let me get some gloves. Let me get some gloves.
Yeah, right here, right here.
You got some?
Yeah, right here. Fuck. She hit me the first time, and then I backed up. Man, you stay down.
I couldn't see what was in her hand.
We're trying to help you.
What'd she have in her hands? It was really hard.
I don't know if she dropped it.
That hammer.
You can go watch the original. I've linked it in the description, and it's going to be another 15 or 18 minutes of them trying to figure out where she's bleeding, getting some kind of medical on her, waiting for the wee-woo wagon to show up, getting her to the hospital. She did live through this, actually, and she's got a pretty long history here. She's being charged with aggravated assault against a police officer because you can see in the video that, you know, she did have a hammer, swung it at the deputy that first came through the door at her and hit him in the arm, was trying to hit him in the head. And thankfully he was able to deflect that and hit him in the arm. Instead, he wasn't badly injured by that. She was shot twice, but did survive her injuries and is facing charges. If you go look, I put a bunch of news stories in the description. She's got a history of this and a history of mental illness, specifically schizophrenia. And when she gets off her medication, then that causes her hallucinations, which is part of schizophrenia as a diagnosis. And then that causes her to do, you know, stuff that isn't any good. And, but as part of that, you know, swinging a hammer at a deputy is going to catch you some serious charges. She's going to end up doing some serious time on this one.
I mean, who got the reference though in the intro, right? I mean,
took me a second.
she hammered in the morning and hammered in the evening all over this land, and then got her ass shot up.
Hammered a deputy in the head, or tried to.
That's bad.
Mike, I'm going to tip my hand on this one and say this shooting is justified. There's really no question about that. But let's start with their entry and their team tactics here, which just doesn't feel to me like they have done any kind of work in working as a team to clear a structure. And officers, deputies, you know, agents need to do that kind of work, because otherwise you're not working as a team here is what I see as the big problem. And because they're not working as a team, they leave each other in dangerous spots where they could have really gotten hurt.
Yeah, after being in law enforcement for a while, you kind of forget the things you've been trained, right? You've been trained how to draw a gun, for example, and do it smoothly and do it efficiently, how to apply handcuffs, all these things. You have to be trained to do these things. They're not natural, right? None of them are. And one of the least natural things in the world to do is walk into a foreign environment you've never been in before in your life with another person and play hide and seek with guns, right? It's an inherently dangerous situation. But if these deputies have never been trained or been made aware of the need for training for room clearing or for building clearing, they don't know what they don't know. And I just get the sense they've never had any formal training as a team in any way, shape, or form in how to clear a building, because everything about this clearing is not good. I don't really blame them. I think they've not been trained properly. That's just my intuition on this.
And listen, here's just a little bit of training for you. Go get your training, right? Go to actual training on this. But when you have a partner here, you got to work together as a partner. You are a two-man unit who are covering each other's back, not allowing each other to be exposed to danger unnecessarily, and using the advantages that the space gives you to keep yourself out of danger and see problems before they show up. That's really what you're after here. And him sending his partner off into danger by himself, or just watching him go off into danger, just made my skin crawl, bro.
Yeah, it's not great. Again, if you haven't been trained in this stuff, it's not intuitive. It's not something you just sort of figure out on your own. So if they haven't been trained, I get why he wouldn't think that's a big deal. My partner's over there. He's going to check that door. He's got a gun. He should be fine. Might be what he's thinking in this moment. However, this is as John said, it's really, really bad. We need to be, cutting pies and checking carefully through doorways and doing it as a team, doing it as a tandem. So these, like I said, I don't have a lot more to say about the room clearance, the building clearance. It's just not great. And I have a sense that they just didn't get the proper training. And if you don't get the training, you're not going to know what to do. You're going to rise to the level of your training.
And then if we watch and see what he does next, then he's going to call over, oh, hey, look, our burglar, we have evidence of a burglar here. Come over here and check it out. And if you look, our deputy now has his back turned to this unknown room. He hasn't cleared that room. That room is filled with unknown danger. And in fact, we know, because we've already watched it,
that our homicidal perp who's willing to hit you in the head with a hammer is in there, and he's just turned his back on that to go and see what's at this table. You gotta think about the danger, and this is why I think good training matters. So hear me, officers, take your building clearing training very seriously and do everything you can. Every time you have to do one of these, do it as a training evolution that says, this is why we do this, so we don't end up getting hit in the head with a hammer.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if they haven't been trained, they don't know what they don't know. Another thing I'll say here, John, is we've talked about this recently, kind of a new concept to us anyway, of can somebody sense danger? Can an officer or a deputy or an agent sense danger? And if they can't, if they're not in tune with where the bad guy might be, with where the danger might lie, things like this can happen. I know because I was well trained, thank God, that I would never ever turn my back on that open door, and unless somebody else had a gun on it, right? Unless somebody else was watching it. And it is hard. It takes discipline to walk through a place and go, oh, wow, cool, look at this. We found, whatever it is, A, B, and C. We found gun or dope or whatever. While you're actually looking for a suspect is not the time to be noting, what evidence might be lying around. We can do all that later once our bad guy or gal is in custody safely. So, yeah, this freeze grab right here makes my teeth hurt watching him with his back to that open door, because she decided to come out right now. No way the partner whose badge cam we're watching would be able to warn him in time for him not to get a hammer shoved into the back of his skull.
Yep, and I'm okay with the officer using his handheld here. Okay, fine, you're doing administrative searches. I don't mind doing that with a handheld light as long as I've got good control over my gun and I know to drop that handheld light when the gunfight starts. That's going to be a challenge here. And I do want to note here that our other officer people, have kind of asked, well, why didn't we get a badge cam from the other officer as well? Because he's not wearing his badge cam. That's why. He's got the mount for his badge cam there, but there's no badge cam on it. Why isn't there a badge cam on it? I don't know. But I'm sure there's going to be some kind of civil attorney or some kind of administrative action that says, hey, man, you were not in uniform and you were not following directions. Thank God his partner here, the other deputy, had his badge cam on and activated, because otherwise this would feel like a cover-up. And this is why it's important for officers to think about, hey, I need my badge cam on me and to be activated because I might run into problems like this.
All right, listen up, deputies, officers, agents, parole, probation, whoever you might be. I'm talking directly to you right now, okay? If this is you and your department has, let's say, defective badge cams, and they're always acting up, they're not working properly, or they're not charged overnight, or for whatever reason you don't have a badge cam available to you, you need to go to your immediate supervisor and have that written down somewhere in a ledger, like, I asked for a badge cam and was denied for A, B, and C reason. It wouldn't charge, they were broken, whatever the case might be, because this is going to look really, really bad. And 6 months from now, when this badge cam gets released and you're facing potential criminal or civil charges, not just this incident, any incident, you're not going to have that badge cam to back up what it is you said happened, and people are going to ask questions. Reasonable people will be like, hey, I see a mount, where's the badge cam? Why doesn't it have a badge cam on? Have that well documented with your supervisor, and make sure you make a stink. Send an email to someone so you can mark this time, because the liability is going to be bad down the road for you if you can't prove, basically, or show some documentation of why you weren't wearing one. Most agencies have a mandate that you have to wear one. So if you don't have one available, make sure it's documented.
And I think, again, because otherwise you're going to face additional scrutiny that you shouldn't. And this is a justified shooting, okay? I think we're going to see that here. Clearly a justified shooting. Thank God we had some evidence for it, okay? And we had another badge cam that really made that very evident. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of questions. Well, she wasn't really dangerous. She was just off her meds. And so how do we know that she was a threat to you? Well, we know because the badge cam did show that significantly. And with the erosion of trust in law enforcement, those badge cams become very important. I am going to say this as well, poor clearing techniques, okay? He is standing literally right in the middle of that doorway, highlighting himself. He's backlit by his partner. Terrible idea, by the way. And standing right in the middle of that hallway, or of that doorway, and he's not using his pistol-mounted light either. He has what looks like a Streamlight TLR-1HL on his pistol, but he's not using it. And so if you don't know how to use it, you won't, and his danger is going to come from the area he's looking in. And also, Mike, why is he standing in that doorway? He could have taken a step up where all those chairs are and cleared that corner without sticking his nose through the doorway and been safe. once again, you gotta know these techniques and think about, how do I clear this with the least danger to me so that you don't end up catching a hammer in the head?
Yeah, in my 30 years in law enforcement, John, I can tell you, this is a bit of an aside. There are people that if we were in a stack to go into a house on a warrant or whatever, if they were behind me, I'd be like, no, you're in front of me. I don't want you behind me, and here's why. In this case, that light should be off right now. This guy's approaching. We're in a well-lit area, well-lit because we have lights on, into a dim-lit area. So now he's basically, profiling, silhouetting his partner to whoever might be inside. Thank God it was, by the way, thank God it was a hammer and not a gun, not a rifle, because this would have ended very, very differently had that been the case. So if you are searching a building and you are not point, right? The stuff's already been cleared. You're the second or third officer or deputy. Having your light on is probably not a great idea unless there's something you have to illuminate. We've already cleared this area where the chairs are, at least I think we have. So turn that light back off. As for the deputy in front, again, he may not know what he doesn't know. If he hasn't been properly trained, he doesn't realize the danger he's putting himself in here, or he doesn't sense the danger that he should sense from the situation. Look, you clear a lot of buildings, you get a lot of burglary calls, and usually nothing happens. Usually it's fine. 99 times out of 100, there's nobody there, the burglar's already left or whatever. Like John said at the top, treat every call as though it's a training evolution, as though you're being graded, as though there's an FI standing there with a clipboard writing down what you did right and wrong, and you'll never get it wrong because you're doing it to the best of your ability.
Again, proper training. Take this training seriously. Even this, a mental rep. Wait a minute, gosh, I don't know what I would do in some of these other situations. Hey, now it's time to rattle some cages. I need some building clearing training. That's for officers, not really for private citizens, okay? Private citizens, we don't do this kind of stuff very much. Now, I will say the danger shows up, and she shows up fast, okay? And she showed up from the place where he was clearing. You notice he's been clearing in that corner. She shows up from that side. Had he just been off, again, back a step or two, lighting up that room with his light, getting off over to where those chairs are, then as she pops up, he's got space and time to deal with this problem. Again, space buys you time. Distance buys you time. And otherwise here, he's just going to end up eating this. And thankfully, he gets his hand up and takes it on the forearm. Because, of course, Mike, you'd much rather take a hammer hit to the hand or to the forearm than you would to the noggin.
Yeah, anything other than a gun, really. So if it's a knife, if it's a blunt object, whatever it might be, I'd rather take a cut to the forearm or a bang with a hammer to the forearm than to my head or my chest or whatever else. I will say this. If you're looking at this screen grab right now, I'm talking to you again, Ellie. Understand that this was preventable. Burn this image into your brain. This was 100% preventable. Had they had the training and employed the training to clear this place properly, this doesn't happen. You can see where those chairs are. As I think John might have said earlier, get up there and just cut the pie into that corner until you can't see anymore. And then here's a crazy idea. Have a mirror. I had a mirror on me at all times when I worked so that I could poke a hand into a room and just check that one part of the corner. They can't probably get all the way into that far right corner from that elevated platform where the chairs are. Hey, bring a mirror with you. Do whatever you got to do, but walking through this door sort of blind is not the answer.
Man, walking in there blind, and again, standing in that doorway, exposed him to danger, all right? Now, I get it. As a law enforcement officer, you're going to get exposed to danger. Most times, it's not going to have anything go wrong. But now, again, does he need to respond and respond quickly? Yes. The other part of this, quite frankly, is, all right, he's holding her off with his hand. He's trying to get his hand up here in the way and get it away from him, those kinds of things. Still has that other hand available. Why she's not filled with whatever duty load that he is carrying in his duty pistol is beyond me. His partner should never have gotten in this fight, quite frankly, because he should have burned her to the ground, Mike, before his other partner got around.
Yeah, I know it sounds, listen, if you're watching these videos and you haven't led a life of law enforcement or whatever, you've never been in the military, some of the things we say can sound really harsh and violent and aggressive. But here's the thing. Everything from, if you're clearing a building like this, for example, everything that you do needs to be tempered but aggressive. And I'm going to talk about this again when it comes to the medical afterwards. That needed to be more aggressive as well. You don't know in that moment that your one shot or two shot may or may not stop the person. So you probably want to put a few rounds into someone who is basically in bad breath distance from you, wielding a hammer, has already hit you once. He chose not to do that. I don't know why or why not. That's between him and his God. As it turns out, it worked out well because she ended up living through this and hopefully getting the help she needs. But in that moment, you've got to be aggressive. You can't pussyfoot around with someone who's trying to murder you with a hammer is the bottom line.
Let me say that again so you can hear it. You cannot just play patty cake, to say it slightly differently, with somebody who is trying to murder you with a hammer. Now, of course, I have great empathy for somebody who is having a schizophrenic break, okay? And great empathy for mental illness. But also in that moment, she's swinging a hammer at an officer. So is this a justified act of the use of deadly force? The answer to that is unequivocally yes. And quite frankly, he should have used that much sooner here. He did end up getting one shot off. I think that shot missed. And then our officer here, you can just see in the top right corner, gets a shot off single-handed because he forgets to drop the handheld flashlight in his hand. That can happen, which is one of the reasons I do like using the pistol-mounted light if you have it available for clearing structures, as long as you know how to bounce light, bounce spill, use your splash and your throw, those kinds of things. Also, you got to be able to shoot one-handed. And is this one of those reasons that somebody gets shot in the back? Yes. Is it justified to shoot her? She's advancing, having just struck an officer in the head or in the head area with a hammer. Is he justified to shoot her? The answer to that is unequivocally yes. And you want to do so fast and accurate.
Yeah, and with two hands, preferably. And again, this could be, look, these two could just be the worst two deputies in this agency, and their training department's fantastic, right? That's a possibility. I don't know anything about their training. But if their actions are indicative of the level of training they're receiving, then the level of training that this agency is receiving is suboptimal. It's substandard. It needs to improve. It needs to improve quickly. So with that said, dropping an object, handcuffs, a clipboard, a flashlight, a pen, whatever it might be, out of your dominant or non-dominant hand should be automatic, right? If this is I'm talking about if you're drawing, from a holster, for example, you're holding something, drop it. Practice that at the range until you can't get it wrong. The problem here is he's walking around with a gun in one hand and a flashlight in the other, as we said earlier. I was told never ever search with a gun-mounted light, and that has changed since I retired. To like, look, as John said, you can use the spill, you can use that aura to do the searching without pointing a gun at anyone. It doesn't need a gun pointed at them. But this shot is way easier with two hands, and here's why that's important. Because if you don't stop this person quickly and effectively, your partner might catch a hammer or a hammer claw to the head. So you want to make sure you're the one who's trained properly to end this threat as quickly as possible, because you don't want the fact that you couldn't pull that off to be the reason why you're explaining to your partner's spouse and kids why they now have a crushed skull and they'll never be right again, or they're dead.
And I do like that our officers here stopped when they were supposed to stop. When do you stop shooting? When the threat stops. Okay, they did a very good job of recognizing the stop signal, which is she's advancing with a hammer, I need to shoot her. She starts retreating. Now I've got space, so she's not an imminent threat of death. So they stop. Then she goes down and they stop some more. So good job for them. And actually, I think they processed that signal and stopped relatively quickly, which isn't always possible in actual human performance perspective. But they did a pretty good job of that. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about here, Mike, is this trauma medical response, which, I think just asking her, where are you shot? What's going on? I don't think was very helpful here. Recognizing, all right, I need to get this woman patted down to make sure she doesn't have any more weapons on her, and then get the clothes off that I need to get off to get some care to her right now is critical. And it seems like they kind of bumbled around at that.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. I went through active shooter instructor training, and one of the things you do is you go into a kill house and there's victims, right? There's a shooter and there's victims, and there's, all sorts of explosive devices and all this stuff that tries to distract you, like the evidence distracted this deputy a few moments ago. Once things have settled down, you got a bad guy or gal in custody with cuffs on, and they're shot, especially if you don't know where they're shot. If you shot more than one round and you see blood, but you can't find a hole where the blood's coming from, you need to be very, very aggressive. This is the point at which you get the person in custody, you search them properly, and then everything gets cut off. There's no time to be bashful. There's no time to be embarrassed about anything. This is no longer that situation. The time is now to cut all the clothes off and start plugging holes, basically. John, you had something you want to say? I'm sorry.
And Mike, let me break in here real quick. They haven't cleared that other room. They don't know if there's not more threats in that other room. So it's still unknown in there. So yes, I've got this one. Somebody needs to stay on this one, but somebody else needs to go and make sure there's no more bad guys. And we didn't do that. So we were hopeful we only had one. Okay, worked out okay this time. May not always work out okay that way. So this is one of those things you've got to look for work and go do that work. And I just see a lot of struggles here in the training department.
Look, I think we're ready to wrap this one up. I'm gonna say a couple of things here. It does seem like sometimes, like John and I are particularly hard on the officers or deputies involved in these videos. I want to point something out. These two deputies got a call. They didn't shirk their duty. You know, they showed up. They were brave. They went in to try to solve the problem. They did all the things they did the things you would hope an officer or a deputy would do in the situation, minus the level of training. I think this department probably needs to get all kinds of training, low light shooting training, how to drop something in your hand training, building clearing training. But I think most especially is the medical response training. That's something that could be your wife or daughter who's been shot and they roll up to the scene and all of a sudden now this is their response to the one you love is bleeding out on the side of the road who could be saved, but they just don't know what to do, or they got the icks and they're like, blood, gross. I don't move in on this. Listen, the most important lesson here, I think, is this trauma medical training and building clearing needs to be better. If your agency isn't getting you this kind of training, I want you to do two things. Have a bake sale, have a car wash, do whatever you got to do. Talk to your local church and to help pay for that training for yourself, or make as much noise as you can. Call your senator, call your congressman and be like, hey, we're not getting what we need down here. We need federal grants. Do whatever you have to do to get that training sorted. Because at the end of the day, that lawsuit's going to be against the department and you if you mess up in the line of duty. So kudos to these officers for being willing to do their job, for being brave. Not so much for the agency and the level of training I suspect they're getting or not getting to cover their ass.